Hi, you're watching Reddit Confessions. Let me tell you something that started with a broken plate, a cold pizza, and 5 words that rewired my entire life. The plate shattered at exactly 9:42 p.m. I remember the time because I was halfway through microwaving leftovers when I heard her voice behind me say, "This isn't working anymore, Wendell." No yelling, no dramatic fight, just those 5 words, followed by the crunch of ceramic on tile as she accidentally knocked her plate off the counter. And then silence, the kind that makes your ears buzz. I stood there holding a warm paper towel, still wiping grease from a pizza box like an idiot. My wife, Marlene, didn't even flinch. She didn't pick up the pieces or explain what she meant. She just stood there, in her blazer, with that smug, rehearsed look on her face like she had finally checked off the last item on a very personal to-do list. I didn't ask why. I didn't raise my voice. I just dropped the paper towel into the trash, grabbed my keys, and walked out. No shoes, no phone charger, no overnight bag, just my car keys and the taste of burnt cheese in my mouth. She didn't follow. She didn't text. She didn't care. I drove for hours with no destination, thinking maybe I'd stop when I ran out of gas or tears. Spoiler, I had more gas than dignity. I ended up in a gas station parking lot 2 towns over, watching a raccoon knock over a soda while I tried to remember what I did wrong. And here's the thing that still messes with me. I wasn't surprised she said it was over. I was surprised by how relieved she looked after saying it. Like she'd been holding her breath for years and finally exhaled. Like I was the burden. That part, that stayed with me. I thought maybe this was just a phase. That she'd cool down. That I'd go back tomorrow and we'd argue, cry, maybe break some more plates, and then try again. But no. When I came back to the house the next day, her closet was half empty. The framed photo of us in Seattle? Gone. The charger on her side of the bed? Gone. Even the cat, my cat before we got married, was gone. No note. No explanations. Just a cold, clinical extraction like I'd been surgically removed from her life. But here's the kicker, and what started this whole mess. I found something in the fridge. Something so out of place, so bizarre, I initially thought it was a joke. But it wasn't. It was a clue. One she forgot to hide. And that's when I realized, Marlene didn't just leave. She planned this. She had help. And I was never supposed to find out. After I walked back into the house the next morning, dazed and hollow, I wasn't looking for anything. I wasn't on a mission. I just wanted a clean shirt and maybe the illusion that everything was normal. But when I opened the fridge, I froze. Sitting right next to the almond milk I never drank and the leftover lentil soup neither of us liked, was a bottle of orange juice. I know how that sounds. But hear me out. Marlene hated orange juice. Hated the smell, the texture, even the commercials. She once made me throw out a new bottle because it had pulp. So why was it here? Chilled. Fresh. Half empty. My heart sank. Not from jealousy, but from realization. Someone else had been here. Someone who drinks orange juice and spends enough time in my kitchen to leave it behind. That's when the unraveling started. I didn't even need to look hard. It was like she wanted to be caught, or maybe thought I was too dull to notice. There was a USB drive in the junk drawer labeled Taxes 2022. Out of spite or stupidity, I plugged it into my laptop. There were no tax documents. There were videos. Short ones. Blurry. Muted. But one clip showed Marlene laughing in a car I didn't recognize. Leaning over to kiss someone. Someone with a beard and a bright green hoodie I'd never seen before. I couldn't breathe. My wife, who hadn't smiled at me in months, looked alive. Giddy. Like the version of her I hadn't seen since we first got married. I know I should have shut the laptop. I should have deleted it all, blocked her number, changed the locks. But I didn't. I sat there watching every clip like a masochist, memorizing angles and lighting and locations. I became obsessed. Not because I wanted her back, but because I needed to know how long she'd been gone while I was still setting the dinner table for 2. And then came the final straw. A voicemail. From him. Accidentally left on our landline. A number no one used except my dentist and spam calls. I played it twice before it hit me. He thought she already told me everything. He thanked her for finally pulling the trigger and said he couldn't wait for their trip to Montana. He called her his brave girl. Brave? She ghosted our entire marriage like it was a bad high school memory, and I was just some footnote. That night, I slept in our bed. Alone. But something had shifted. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stared at the ceiling and realized this wasn't over. Not yet. Because if she thought I'd vanish quietly, she didn't know me at all. I spent that entire Sunday walking through the house like a forensic investigator in his own crime scene. Every drawer, every cabinet, every untouched item suddenly told a different story. Her pink travel mug, washed and missing from the dish rack. The black overnight bag she hadn't used since our niece's wedding, gone. And then I found it, stuffed behind her side of the bed, as if hastily forgotten. A receipt from a boutique hotel downtown. 2 nights. King Suite. Paid in cash. I looked up the name of the hotel, and my stomach sank when I saw their marketing slogan, luxury designed for 2. My fingers trembled as I called. I don't even know why. Maybe I hoped they'd tell me it was a mistake. But the receptionist confirmed the reservation without hesitation. I asked if they had security footage, something stupid I knew they wouldn't hand over. She politely declined, but her tone shifted the moment I gave her my name. I heard it, that pause. The realization. She knew who I was. I hung up. So this wasn't just a fling. This was a full-blown betrayal. And not just of love or loyalty, but of reality. She'd been living a second life while I was updating our Netflix password and wondering why we didn't cuddle anymore. I felt like the ghost of a man still haunting the walls of a life he didn't know had ended. And just when I thought I'd reached emotional rock bottom, my phone buzzed. It was a text from my neighbor, Delia. Hey, I didn't want to get involved before, but are you okay? I've seen your wife with a guy. Not recently. For months. He parked in your driveway once when you were working from home. She said you were napping. Napping? I sat on that couch for 4 hours that day, wondering why she kept pulling the curtain closed. I wasn't napping. I was invisible. Delia's text was a match dropped into a soaked haystack. It didn't cause the fire, but it dried everything up for when it finally would. I texted her back and asked who the man was. Her reply was just 2 words, tall guy? Beard. I knew exactly who it was. His name was Bryce. Or at least that's what he went by when I met him once, 6 months ago, when Marlene said she needed help fixing the storefront sign at her candle shop. She introduced him as her business friend from yoga. He shook my hand with too much enthusiasm. He called me bro. I remember thinking he smelled like cinnamon and cologne and that his shoes were too white for someone who supposedly worked with power tools. I thought I was being petty. Turns out, I was being cheated on by a guy who wore bracelets. The rage didn't hit right away. It was embarrassment first. Humiliation. I started thinking about all the times I cleaned that house while she was working late. All the times I put laundry on her side of the bed. I used to fold her cardigans with care. She used to roll her eyes at that, say I overdid it. The next day, I drove to her shop. It was closed. I looked through the glass and saw 2 wine glasses on the back desk. A candle was still flickering. There was a jacket on the chair, green, with that same bracelet pattern I remembered from Bryce's wrist. It was his. They were there. So I waited. Not like a psycho. I didn't hide in the bushes or anything. I just sat in my car and watched. For over 4 hours. No one came out. But at exactly 8:17 p.m., the lights went off. And moments later, they both walked out, laughing. Her hand was on his chest. He kissed her forehead. She got into his car. She didn't even look back at the building, or the sidewalk, or me. She had no idea I was parked just across the street. And that's when I realized something awful. I didn't recognize my own wife anymore. I became something else in the days that followed. Not vengeful, not bold, just quiet. Quieter than I've ever been in my life. I wasn't angry. I was hollow, like I'd been scooped out and left to watch my own body go through the motions. I stopped answering calls from work, stopped replying to texts from my brother. I sat in that cold, half-empty house where her perfume still clung to the bathroom towels, and I just listened. Listened for anything. A sign. A key in the lock. A message. Nothing came. The silence was so loud I started turning on the dishwasher just to hear something mechanical. I slept on the couch because our bed made me nauseous. I hadn't been eating, but I kept opening the fridge like maybe she'd be standing there holding orange juice and smiling like none of it had happened. But the worst part, the part that really broke me, was what I found on the shared Google account we never disconnected. A photo album had synced to our cloud. The title was just a heart emoji. I clicked it without thinking. And there they were. Bryce and Marlene. In Montana. On horseback. In a hot spring. At a vineyard. Her head on his shoulder. Him holding a bottle of wine I once bought for our anniversary. In one picture, she was wearing my hoodie. The blue one with the frayed sleeves she used to sleep in when she had migraines. She had it wrapped around her waist like it meant nothing. I stared at those photos until my vision blurred. Every image felt like a slap, every smile a betrayal of the life I thought we had. But what finally shattered me was a short video, 15 seconds, of Marlene holding a glass of wine and laughing as Bryce kissed her cheek. She looked into the camera and said, "I finally feel free." Free? Was I a prison? Had our entire life together been some sort of sentence she was just waiting to escape? I shut my laptop, closed the blinds, sat down at the kitchen table and stared at the walls, remembering how I painted them gray because she said beige was too emotionally safe. I had no plan, no next step, just this sick realization sitting in my chest. She didn't just leave me. She replaced me. It happened on a Tuesday afternoon. I was folding laundry I hadn't worn in weeks, just to feel like I still had some kind of routine. And that's when I found it. Tucked in the back pocket of a pair of her old jeans, an appointment card from a boutique law office. The kind that didn't advertise. The kind you found only if you were referred. It was dated 2 weeks before she told me it was over. A divorce consultation. She'd planned it all. The emotional detachment. The half-hearted dinners. The weekend trips to see her sister. It wasn't sudden. It wasn't impulsive. She was slowly walking away while I was still asking if she wanted takeout or leftovers. My marriage hadn't ended on that night with the broken plate. That was just when she told me. The actual ending had been unfolding quietly, while I held the door open for her and asked if she needed gas money. I don't know what came over me, but I got in the car and drove. I didn't even think about it. I just followed instinct. I drove past the boutique law office, parked across the street, stared at the frosted glass doors until my eyes hurt. I wasn't sure if I was hoping to see her walk out or just prove to myself it was real. Either way, I sat there for an hour. Then 2. She never showed. I started the car and was about to leave when a woman came out of the office. Not Marlene. Someone older. She looked at me, paused, then crossed the street like she knew. She tapped my window. "Are you Wendell?" I nodded, startled. "I thought so. Marlene said you'd be stopping by eventually." I didn't even have words. Just this strange coldness in my chest. "She wanted you to know you don't have to worry," the woman added. "Everything's already in motion." Everything's already in motion. That sentence stuck with me. It wasn't a divorce. It was an evacuation. She wasn't leaving a man. She was abandoning a life like it was a job she finally quit after years of pretending to care. That night, I returned home to find my mailbox stuffed with envelopes. Not bills. Not junk. Legal notices. Bank statements. One of them was a change of address confirmation for both of our names. She had officially moved us out of our home. Without me. After finding the change of address confirmation, I sat at the kitchen table and stared at it for almost an hour. It was addressed to both our names, but the forwarding address listed was an apartment downtown, a new development with skyline views and smart doorbells. She was already moving into her shiny new life, and she took my name with her. I guess I wasn't even allowed to keep that. I don't remember deciding to go there. I just found myself outside the building, dressed like a man who had given up. Hoodie, stubble, 2-day-old breath. I asked the doorman if I could leave a package for Marlene. He looked at me with polite suspicion until I pulled out my ID. He nodded and handed me a small envelope to include. I didn't bring a package. I had something else, something better. Inside the envelope, I placed a photo. Not of us, but of her. It was an old Polaroid I'd taken years ago, right after we'd moved into our house. She was in sweatpants, hair a mess, holding a paint roller and laughing because I'd just dropped blue paint on her socks. She had no makeup on, no filter, and she looked real. I wrote 3 words on the back. "You were enough." Then, underneath in smaller print. "Until you decided not to be." That's all. No threats. No guilt tripping. No begging her to come back. I handed it over, nodded at the doorman, and left. I didn't wait for a response. I didn't expect one. But later that night, I got one anyway. An email. No subject line. No greeting. Just one sentence. "I didn't think you'd actually leave." That was it. No apology. No explanation. Just the dumbest sentence I've ever read. As if she thought I'd stay frozen in time while she rewrote our lives without me. But for the first time in weeks, I laughed. Not a joyful laugh. More like a breath finally escaping my lungs. Because in that moment, I realized something important. Not about her, but about me. I didn't leave because I was strong. I left because staying would have broken whatever was left of me. After that one-sentence email from Marlene, I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Her words weren't a cry for help or regret. They were confirmation. She thought I was the kind of man who'd wait around for permission to matter. She was wrong. A week later, I officially signed the divorce papers. No lawyers. No back and forth. I didn't contest a thing. I even let her keep the fancy blender I bought, but never touched. I just wanted out. Clean, quiet, final. And once it was done, something strange happened. I woke up the next morning and didn't feel that ache in my chest. Not joy, not relief. Just space. Like my life had finally exhaled. I started going outside again. Not far at first. Just walks to the corner store, then to the park, then a coffee shop that didn't judge me for ordering chamomile tea at 11 a.m. I brought a notebook. I started writing, dumb things at first. Grocery lists I didn't need. Questions I never asked. Then real thoughts. Memories. Regrets. Dreams. Turns out, I hadn't just lost her. I'd lost myself long before she walked away. One morning, I found a note tucked under my windshield wiper. It wasn't from Marlene. It was from the woman who worked at the coffee shop. She'd seen me writing every day. Her note just said, "You always look like you're remembering something important. I hope it's good." It wasn't at first. But now? Yeah, it's getting there. I don't hate Marlene. I don't wish her pain. She made a choice, and it hurt like hell, but it also ripped me out of a life where I was slowly fading. Sometimes it takes the worst kind of ending to realize you're allowed to begin again. And I'm beginning. So that's my story. If you're still here, thank you. Honestly, now I want to hear from you. Have you ever discovered something that completely changed your perspective? Drop your story in the comments below. I read every one. And don't forget, this is Reddit Confessions, where real stories get real closure.